As the airport taxi drove off into the expressway from the airport, Susan sat at the back seat feeling sad beside Mufu, her fiancé. Susan, a beautiful attractive lady from the marine world, whose mission was to locate, ruin and terminate Mufu, has succeeded so far in her mission. Mufu is a very intelligent and successful Nigerian engineer in Scotland. A very good and reliable engineer that has established himself and commanded great respect amongst his peers in diaspora. The youngest, and only surviving son of all his aging father's children. Mufu has avoided coming back home in order to avoid some traditions and inheritance that may rain burdens and hinder his personal dreams and prospects. Susan, the demon from the marine kingdom, has regrettably, but successfully brought him back to his fatherland. Mufu's stepmother had contacted the goddess of the sea with his personal item and offered sacrifices in return for the destruction of Mufu. A very easy task it has been, so far, for an experienced high-ranking girl from the marine kingdom. Susan was assigned for the mission and she easily located him in Scotland. She took her time to monitor him and successfully followed and learnt all that she needed to know about him. She shadowed him all through. Mufu had never been alone since her mission was assigned. Nothing came as a coincidence and nothing came by chance. Everything that happened today was well planned and orchestrated. Sitting and drinking in a club that fateful day, he was locked in Susan's tireless seductive dance moves, which was irresistible. The way she handled herself, shaking and flaunting her curvy body, caught lots of attention in the club. And her sole interest was not left out as she got Mufu's interest captivated. His imagination ran wild and he could feel the attraction as though, with all the people in the club that night, her dance was specially dedicated to him. He could no longer steal glances at her. He was fully attentive to her, as if announcing to the world that he was focused on her. Mufu, who has never stepped to the dance floor, found himself pulled to get up and get closer, and maybe dance a little bit. He usually restricts himself to the VIP section until it was time to leave. But on this fateful day, Mufu eventually found himself dancing on the dance floor with his both arms wrapped around Susan. They had a few drinks together and shared some pleasantries well into the night. Eventually, he was proud to be the man to take home the most beautiful girl of the night. She was the no competition trophy that crowned his joy for the night. Susan was every woman put together in one. She was everything Mufu ever wished for, and more. He fell so deeply in love with her as days goes by. Her love and romance was so full of fun. Their relationship was so promising and full of hope for the best future anyone will dream of. Mufu was so happy and wondered where she had been, all the while that he was single and lonely. He was happy and grateful that he found such a sensational, beautiful and sweet good woman for himself. What more could a man want in a woman? Susan was the real deal. Mufu didn't have many friends apart from his colleagues and a couple of clients and associates that he chose to keep close. Now, with Susan, she meant the world to him and he couldn't wait to put a ring on her finger. Everything about Susan was angelic. It wasn't long before she moved in with him. Mufu initially felt insecure and was scared of losing her to another man out there. He insisted that she moved in with him and stayed at home. He told her not to look for any job, because he was well cashed up to take care of all her needs. She moved in with him and everything was rosy. Their romance was a blend of affluence and high school teenage tender yearnings. Stupidity and fun and love was well excused. They were both glad to discover that they shared a lot of interests in common. Mufu loves watching football. This runs in his family. His father never got to play football professionally, but he represented his schools, both high school and university. His disappointment in his inability to play professionally is the reason he never allowed his children to embrace football as a profession. Mufu loves watching football matches and was exhilarated to discover that Susan shares the same passion for the game. Months later, He called his father back in Nigeria to inform him about his engagement to his prospective beautiful fiancée. Though his father was relieved to hear that she is also a Nigerian, he took the whole arrangement with a pinch of salt because his father had always wanted him to return home and chose what he considered a decent girl whose family background was very well reputable and known. But with his father's level of civilization and exposure, he knew and understood that the choice was solely for Mofu to make. Susan played her cards very well. She was good. She knew him very well and was readily available and willing to give him what he wanted and when he wanted it. She gave him the best answers and manipulated lots of things. Winning his heart and trust was not a problem in any way. She had him at the tip of her pencil. And his life was just the prince that he read. To Susan, coming back to Nigeria was the strategic place to terminate Mofu completely. Already, he was having challenges at his workplace. His main bank account has been frozen by the Scottish authority for an unexplainable reasons, and the case is still in court with an unspecified date for hearing. She has successfully crippled him financially. He sold his car to raise money to pay up his house rent for last month and the current month. The only reason he agreed to come back home was because, to him, she successfully convinced him to seek his father's help. He believed that her strong influence on him was the consequence of his limitless love for her. But Susan's powers and influence on him was way beyond the physical. He was very precautious on matter that concerns her. He loved her so much that he couldn't hurt her feelings by saying no. In spite of it all, Mofu took his time and made contacts. He planned to seek spiritual help when he gets to Nigeria, before proceeding to his family home. He was very active on social media. He was very much aware of the flux of spiritual quests and conquests in most of the videos he has seen on social media platforms. He trusted that he could get help when he gets to Nigeria, and he has been assured of that. Their traveling arrangement was already finalized before Susan became reluctant to go through with it. It was her idea, so that she can terminate him completely in the presence of his stepmother. But Susan was already feeling the emptiness of her life without Mofu. She realized that she was genuinely in love with him. She wondered if it was too late to abort her mission. But there was too much at stake for her. Coincidentally, there was so much to benefit from reviving and re-establishing him with his wealth and remain with him on Earth. As the car drove onto the highway, speeding to their already booked hotel room, Mofu quickly sent a few messages to a YouTube content creator whom he contacted for help to see a spiritual man of God as soon as he gets to Nigeria. He turns in time to notice that Susan couldn't conceal her anger anymore. He reached out and held her on her shoulder. "Babe, what's the matter? You okay?" "I am fine. Just tired," Susan pretended. "Sorry dear. We'll soon be at the hotel so that you can rest very well." He assured her, but Susan was far from listening to him. That night, both of them could not secure a good night rest. While Susan could sense an impending doom, with the blanket of fear was slowly engulfing her, Mofu was full of anticipation and uncertainty. But Susan attributed her feelings and mood, and saw it from the point of the total ruin and calamity that awaits the man that she only recently allowed herself to genuinely fall in love with. Yet she had engineered and perfectly executed all the ruins and tragedies that had befallen him, and more to come. That was her assignment on Earth, her mission against Mofu. A mission that has been fully paid for, by his stepmother who is one of their clients in the Marine Kingdom. Was her fear, just because Mofu's expected death is finally coming within a day or two, and her mission completed? Was it her reluctance to return to the Marine Kingdom that was bothering her? Could there be a catastrophe of greater magnitude, hanging, which she couldn't foresee? Where could it be coming from? Eventually, she told herself that she had to look for a way to undo everything and return back Mofu's destiny and glory, if she chose to remain and not return back to the marine world. She turned to Mofu on the bed. Seeing that he was still fully awake, she could tell that he too had a lot in his mind at that moment. She decided not to intrude because she was sure that nothing she said to him at that moment would be true. Instead, she stamped a kiss on his cheek with a faint smile and pretended to sleep. Mufu was only here to seek answers to his recent misfortunes and unbearable setbacks. After which, he intended to take Susan to his family and introduce her to his father as his fiancée. And hurriedly travel back to his base in Europe and fix things up. But was he ready for the revelations that awaited him? Could he handle the truth that was to come? After a short breakfast, the following morning, they met with Tamara, a social media content creator whom he met online, to help him with his struggles because he believed that it needed a spiritual approach. But all of these was unknown to Susan because he never wanted her to think less of him, or talk him out of it. Tamara led them through a narrow path that led to a river which the spiritualist had directed. Here they are scheduled to meet with a prophetess. A spiritual woman of God. Susan wondered why they had to come to a riverside. But she was confident that all was well and she could handle and control everything. The prophetess was seen coming after them. She had prayed and fasted over the case and had seen and gotten answers. And she was not blind from what was to come. Susan's discomfort was followed by a protest on why she was brought to that place. After they managed to calm her, the prophetess revealed the truth. Mufu protested against the revelation that Susan was the cause of everything that had been happening to him. And worst still, the fact that he had just one day to live. How could he believe that the only woman that meant the world to him, the woman that he was practically living his life for, was the same girl that was out to take his life? There is no need. Let her just finish it up. Let her just take my life. I have nothing to live for. I can't live without her. I love her so much. Mufu submitted and gave up. The prophetess mentioned his stepmother's name and described her to convince Mufu of the truth. And how his stepmother was behind it all. Susan initially denied the fact that she was not human but from the marine kingdom. Mufu found it difficult to believe, in spite of all the evidence pointing to the facts on ground. As a matter of fact, he did not want to believe because he certainly never wanted it to be true. But he was forced to believe when Susan started manifesting her marine traits. As the prophetess started praying to send her back to her kingdom, she waged a resistance. And pleaded with Mufu to take her side and stick with her. Professing her love for him and told him that she did not want to go back. She admitted that it was his stepmother had come to them to help her ruin him and kill him. Mufu watched her in horror and fear. At this point, Susan knew very well, that with this revelation, she hardly stood any chance with Mufu who had come to know her dirty catastrophic secret. Susan was indecisive. Her life was most at stake. Mufu's life is already what she has made it to be and at the point of completely losing it. She thought of all of these, but that wasn't a problem for her because she has already decided to restore everything he lost and give him more. She knew she could revive him and give him more treasures and wealth. This would be best for her than going back to the marine world and to the damaging punishment that awaits her there for breaking the laws and their moral principles. Susan turned in time to see Titi, one of their marine warriors, emerging from the water. She was then very certain that she was in serious trouble. She knew that Titi wasn't coming there to help her out. She had to figure out a way to save her life from Titi and the prophetess. She was all alone. The prophetess on one side, and the merciless Titi from her kingdom on the other side. She was helpless and she knew she had to choose her battle immediately. She looked at Mufu and wished she could disappear with him. Titi was closing in on them. She was her bitter rival in the marine kingdom. Susan was certain, she didn't want to go back anymore. If only she had made her decision a day or 2 days earlier. She would have had everything under control and resolved everything for Mufu and for their beautiful romance. Irrespective of the consequences she will face. Danger and death was all she was seeing, breathing and facing at the moment. She couldn't cry any more for the love of Mufu. Her sorrow and tears had mounted heavily in her heart, for her own life that she may lose in seconds at that moment. Titi was not just her bitter rival, she was in love with Susan's marine husband. Her orders may have been to neutralize Susan and bring her back to face the consequences of her deeds. But deep within, she knew she must terminate Susan. That was her best opportunity which she wouldn't allow to slide. The mere fact that Titi was chosen and sent to go after Susan implied that they had decided her fate. They must have decided to show her no mercy, neither here on earth, nor in the marine kingdom. Titi was perfect for the job. She was combatant and a stronger warrior. But Susan was superior in hierarchy. But not just did she failed in an important mission, she had broken the rules by choice and fallen in love. She handled an important office and she was a tutor and a mentor in the marine kingdom. The consequences of her actions will impact adversely on her mentorship, which has the highest number of members. All of this has happened at a point when she was at a crossroad. And even if she survived this moment and remained on Earth, her secrets was already uncovered. She stood no chance with a man whom she has eventually fallen in love with, the man she chose to commit treason for, against her kingdom where she commanded authority and reigned supreme. Still, a man she deceived, ruined, and fell in love with. Mufu, who is now getting delivered by the spiritualist, has distanced himself and is certain to cut her off. At that point, Titi was looking fierce and within touching distance of Susan. Just when Susan was about to initiate an attack, she noticed that Titi was heading towards Mufu. Preposterous, she said to herself. She couldn't stand and allowed Titi to come here today and complete the mission that she started over a year ago. It may have been a failed mission, but the failure was by choice. Susan knew that she mustn't allow Titi to get to Mufu. That would further soar her detriments, and a probable end to her life. And it meant a level promotion for Titi. Before Titi could get any closer to Mufu, Susan launched an attack on Titi from behind. Her attack came simultaneously with the spiritual woman of God who rebuked Titi with a powerful command. The double impact forced her to fall on the ground. She quickly got to her feet and charged towards Susan. Susan swung her fist, but Titi quickly ducked and Susan fell to the water. Just then, two other marine warriors appeared in the water and stood watching. As Titi reaches for Susan, she quickly changed to a dark glowing fish. But before she could swim away, Titi stroked the water so hard and forced Susan back to the shore. Titi waved her hand fiercely with a yell of anguish. The impact forced the prophetess to stagger backward with 2 steps. But Tamara and Mufu fell heavily to the ground. The prophetess regains her composure, raised her voice and prayed, "Even though I walk through the shadows in the valley of death, I shall fear no evil. Your rod and your staff gives me comfort. Your angels take charge over me and I am protected by your shield. In the name of the Lord my God I rebuke you and your evil forces. I command you to bow and flee to wherever you came from. I resist you and all of your evil forces in the name of the Lord my God." Titi turns round and round twice with a scream and charged towards the prophetess who was simultaneously praying and rebuking. But this time, Titi's force was met with a thick invisible wall and she falls to the ground. She struggles back to her feet. The scene became uncomfortably dangerous, especially for the weak. Tamara and Mufu were extremely terrified. The river tide rose, and the water waves responded tumultuously high and low, rendering the most dangerous scene to behold. Fishermen at the other side of the river were already drowning. Their fishing boat has sunk into the river and their swimming skills was failing. They couldn't handle the dangerous water waves that caught up with them. And they were oblivious of the cause of the sudden change and danger. The other 2 mermaids who were just watching and standing by, to witness and support in case of any unbearable turn of event, became charged and aggressive in the feel of the turbulence. But before they could move in, Susan was already charging towards them. They retreated respectfully, knowing that she was still their superior, at least for the time being. Titi, who had just been casted back into the water, figured that if she keeps on fighting, Susan may figure out a way to escape. She knew Susan was her price, she knew Susan was her target, she knew Susan was her main objective, she knew she must destroy Susan. She then considered the prophetess and co to be unworthy distraction. She turned her attention to Susan and charged towards her as the water waves rose violently. Mofu and Tamara took to their heels and bolted away in fear, while the prophetess was overwhelmed with the joy of victory. She sang praises to the Lord her God and gave thanks for victory. She called on Mofu and Tamara to come back and join her, but they were far gone and did not bother to look back. By evening of the following day, they gathered in the prophetess' house for final deliverance. Mofu and Tamara were invited to her house and she conducted a session of final deliverance and restoration for Mofu. It all went well. Finally, Mofu was happy and grateful for the deliverance and restoration. His glory was restored, and immediately after the prayer session, he got a very exciting phone call from his lawyer all the way from Scotland. To the glory of God, Mofu was back. And back, for good. You can subscribe for more interesting tales like this. Trust, we will keep it coming. Thanks for watching. I am glad you enjoyed it all through. Watch out for more.